Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my rant on the Hollywood strike that is going on currently. So this is my thoughts on the SAG, AFTRA, and WGA strikes. And before I go any further sharing more of my thoughts on this strike, I want to give a special shout out to Brian for requesting this topic. And if there's another topic that you like, film or TV show that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal. The link will be in the video description down below, and I'll try to get to it as soon as I possibly can. Now, at points throughout this video, I might forget to mention the WGA, or I might not reference the SAG AFTRA, or I might reference one more over the other. That's because I actually pre-recorded some of my statements for this video. So I just wanted to make that a little bit clear here before I go on with this video. So now that that's out of the way, I hope you enjoy this rant on a pretty topical topic right now in the film industry. And yeah, roll it. So it's been quite a long time since we've had dual strikes. And the reason for this happening is because there's a lot of things that are shifting when it comes to the industry. And in a lot of ways, what's shifting is due to a multitude of different factors. So, first off, you have post pandemic box office returns that, other than maybe a handful of films, have been pretty paltry, even compared to years past. So you have a lot of studios who are not making as much money from film releases and are honestly not doing too hot financially. You also have the streaming stuff going on, so then you have their finances that are spread even more thin because they put all this money into these streaming services. And for a lot of these studios, the streaming services have not necessarily done as well as they would have hoped. So that makes it so they make a less cash as well. So they cut corners in different ways. And how they do that is they cut corners by not paying their writers or their actors a fair or decent wage. And what I mean by not paying their actors and writers, I'm not saying that everybody is in that boat, because to be fair, there are some actors and writers who get paid handsomely for their efforts. They get paid a significant amount of money, but they aren't really the focus of this strike. The strike is, in a lot of ways, really from the perspective of the people who are not getting paid the millions or the big bucks. They're getting paid pretty minimal amounts of money for their contributions to cinema. And it's been happening for way too long. And now they are wielding their power and trying to get the industry to just pay them fairly. I mean, a good example of this is A24 actually is paying their actors and the people who are working for their company, including the writers. They are paying them the amount of money that the people who are on strike are asking for, and without any problems. So if A24 can do it, then there's no reason that these other studios that are bigger and have more finances to work with can't do the same. Like there's no reason why they can't do that. But they refuse to do it. In fact, you're seeing a lot of these studios actually resorting to AI. And that's another factor as to why this strike is happening is the rise of AI when it comes to writing or other forms of creativity or creation when it comes to cinema. And I think that's a very honestly kind of upsetting thing is that the studios are actively willing or looking into replacing writers or even actors in some cases with AI. One of the big proponents of the actor strike is the fact that a lot of these extras, a lot of these people who are part of the guild, who are part of the union, they were being asked by these studios to have their likeness scanned into a computer and get paid a pretty paltry, weak amount of money, so the studio can then use their likeness in perpetuity, perpetuity. Sorry, my bad. I don't know why I couldn't say that word straight. I think it's probably because it's something that really does upset me to my core, that these studios would be so cheap that they would think that they could get away with replacing people with CGI copies of people and not pay them for their likeness in a appropriate manner. I mean, it's stunning to me that they think they could get away with a lowball offer for something like that to these background actors or these extras. And this also leads to another thing that I definitely think about when it comes to the strike, and it's how some people react to it as if it's not a big deal, as if it just deals with everyone who's super privileged and already has enough. And I can understand that mindset in some capacity, because if you are talking about the actors like Tom Cruise and so on and so forth and make the millions of dollars, like they're not hurting. So I can understand why some people would look at that like, really, like they want more money. But in this particular instance, this strike is an all or nothing thing. So if things aren't changed in terms of the way that all actors and all writers are paid, then no one gets anything. So that's really the crux of this. It's something that you can't be selective with. You can't be like, oh well, that writer who wrote this trashy, awful, woke movie, they don't deserve to get paid more. And I can understand that in theory, because in some ways I do agree with that. But this isn't a selective thing. It's all or nothing. Either all the writers get the same treatment or the same financial agreement from the studios, or they get nothing. That's how it is. You can't start selectively choosing which writer or actor should be paid what based on subjective things like the quality of their content that they're creating or they're a part of. That's a slippery slope, and it's something that's nearly impossible to really uh, um, regulate. So it's one of those things where I can understand some people's stance when it comes to this not being a big deal and boohoo, they should just do better. But the fact is that there's a lot of writers and a lot of actors who aren't the big names, who aren't writing really bad films or TV shows that are instances of forced politics and pandering to certain demographics and all of that, and virtue signaling. Like there are some people who are actually legitimately trying it and putting a good amount of effort into their content and doing good work. They're not getting paid nearly enough for their services. I mean, there was a writer who I read got paid like around like a little bit over like $300 for an episode of a show that they worked on. That's less than I make at one of my retail jobs for a week of work on minimum wage. That's 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 ridiculous to me. That is absolutely absurd. And that's a prime example of why this system currently is broken, and why the strike is happening, is because you have these writers or these other actors who are not getting compensated anywhere near as much as they should be for what they put into the content that the studios are producing and releasing to the masses. It's not necessarily about getting everything or getting the most money possible. It's really honestly just about getting paid fairly. And I also get some people's perspective when it comes to this strike in terms of, well, what about other people who are struggling and are doing even worse in like the middle class or the lower class and so on and so forth. And why aren't we doing anything about that? And I think that's a very valid question. But when it comes to a lot of different aspects of society, especially when it comes to things dealing with finances, you really can't just do you can't really do everything at once. Like, you have to focus things in a certain way. And when it comes to like what's going on in the industry, it's very much a union thing, and it's very much tied into specifically Hollywood. So when it comes to like doing things like helping the community and doing other things like that, that's more of a state thing, that's more of a government thing, that's something that is separate from what's going on in Hollywood with the writers and the actors right now who are on strike. And to expand upon that, there are some actors and writers that are actually a part of the middle class. They're not upper class. They're not rich and just loaded with cash and needing not much of anything to keep going. There were a lot of these writers and some of these actors who they aren't getting paid nearly enough as it is. And then when the strike is thrown in there, and now everything has come to a halt, now they can't afford their rent. I know somebody on social media who I'm not super close friends with, but I am friends with, and he's in a really tough spot right now because he waited a long time to get another job writing, and now the strike is happening, and now that job's gone, and now he's having to ask people for help just to be able to pay his rent because he wasn't making enough previously as a writer in the industry to give himself a good enough nest egg to really survive something like this. So if he's dealing with that, so are a lot of other people. So this isn't just a upper class sort of problem. This is something that's applying to a multitude of different parts of the class system when it comes to this strike. It's also affecting other aspects of our economy, which is something that is pretty crazy to think about. That a Hollywood strike can actually affect the economy as a whole, and it honestly can, because there's a decent amount of money that, despite what's going on and how you feel about the subjective quality of films coming out today or shows that are coming out today, ones that do provide profit do help our economy. And especially when it comes to the more successful films and films that are doing well overseas. So it's one of those things where this is definitely going to cause a ripple effect, and something that is going to affect a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and not necessarily just people inside the industry, but the people who are in the industry. They're the ones that are definitely being affected the most. And that's why when you have statements from like Bob Iger that are incredibly clueless and just completely missing the entire point, that's why those statements are so frustrating. When you have people like Bob Iger saying that the SAG AFTRA and their demands are unrealistic and just unacceptable, basically. Uh, he says things that are just absolutely tone deaf, that really honestly can drive you up the wall. It drove me up the wall when I first read it. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Like, uh, I mean, you're doing yourself no favors, Bob, in your second tenure or second stint as the Disney CEO, to come out in the middle of a strike and basically tell the people who are striking that they're unrealistic and what they're asking for is absurd. When you're making millions of dollars when it comes to your CEO salary. And like I said earlier, A24 is able to do this. So they can do it. Well, that means that all these other studios can do it too. Like, cut the paychecks of the CEOs if you have to pay the writers and the other actors. Like, why are the CEOs getting paid that much to begin with? That's really something to think about. And also, this is gonna get ugly if it hasn't already. I know it's already been going on for, I think, like a few days or a week, and it's not gonna end in a way that is, let's just say, sunshine and rainbows, or it's not gonna end anytime soon. If you ask me, this is gonna get dragged out for a while, and this is gonna cause a significant fallout in the industry. Even if things get resolved between the two parties, because you're going to have films that are going to get delayed, if not entirely canceled, and that's going to definitely suck, because there are going to be some films that might have been potentially good or interesting that are never going to see the light of day or never going to get made because the strike's going to go on for so long. You're going to have films that are going to get pushed back in terms of their release, so that might affect their ability to actually perform somewhat well financially, because there's no guarantee that they'll do as well later in the timeline or on the schedule when it comes to the release schedule. And also, it could potentially lead to what's already happening, where these studios are doubling down on AI. So it could lead to a fallout that's pretty dramatic, where, yeah, the writers are and a lot of these actors are just asking to be paid fairly, but the studios are going to look at it like, what are you doing? We're already struggling financially because of what's going on post-pandemic and what's going on with a lot of these IPs and these big popular franchises that are not performing that well. So we're not really doing great as an industry, and you want us to pay you more? Well, screw you. We'll just replace you with AI. And that's what's already happening. I mean, the industry leaders, like the studios, they were willing to wait things out when it was just a writer strike. And we're even saying things like, well, we'll just wait until they go broke, which is just awful. And so when you hear stuff like that, it's not that far-fetched or incredulous that they would just decide to replace them with AI, whether it's actors or writers. And we're getting to the point with deepfakes and all this other stuff where it wouldn't be too out far to left field to have these films that are coming out starring actors who are no longer around, that aren't even alive anymore, just so they don't have to pay the actors. Oh, okay, we can't pay Brad Pitt. We can't pay some of these newer up and coming actors who were trying to make a name in the industry anymore. Oh, we can't pay Ryan Gosling. Okay, well we'll just bring back Christopher Reeve and put him in a new movie. We'll do that we'll have Charles Bronson star in a new film or something. You know, I wouldn't put it past studios to do that shit, because it saves them a buck. It saves them money. Because at the end of the day, these studios don't care about the financial stability of writers or actors. They don't care about people's well-being and you know, financial security. They care about money. They care about their financial security, their financial stability. They don't give a shit about anybody else. So it wouldn't be that crazy to think that, oh, we'll just do it with deep fake actors, CGI, or we'll make everything animated, or we'll do this or that. They'll do every workaround they can think of, other than pay people. And definitely when it comes to the writer's case, they're just gonna replace them with AI. And I think it's not going to turn out as well as they personally hope, but there is a chance that it might be fine. And if that's the case, then there's a serious fallout that's going to come from that. And have so many writers who are just going to be out of jobs because the studio's going to be like, we don't need you. The AI can do your job. We'll pay people to service the AI, but we don't need you. So, and that's just a really sobering thought to think about, that like we might be living in a day and age soon where AI is basically writing movies, writing shows, and writers, physical human writers, are obsolete. And I think that's also a reason why these writers are striking, because they see that on the horizon and they feel that, well, if I'm going to get replaced eventually, can I at least get something that I can live off of, that I can live on? And I don't even, at this point, I don't even know if the studios even want to give these writers or these other actors that. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that are going on with this that are troubling to me, to say the least. I hope things get resolved in a way that it appeals to both parties, or both parties find agreeable sooner rather than later. But I think we're just seeing the very beginning of what's going to be a long, drawn out battle, and it's just a matter of time. It's just waiting until we see the victor, and hopefully it's the hardworking people in the industry that in a lot of ways are the backbone of Hollywood. Hopefully it's them being victorious in the end. But as we all know, even in a lot of these Hollywood films, they don't always win. So there's that possibility that the studio, they might win. And if the studio wins, I don't think that things are going to be really ideal, to say the least, when it comes to writers and a lot of these other actors. Because if the studio wins, that means that the studio strong armed them, got them to take a lesser deal, or the studio replaced them. And that is something that it's just insane to think about, but it's a potential reality. And that's what's so just disturbing about it to me. And it's just crazy that AI is advanced to this point where this is a viable and potential ending to all of this. But anyway, I don't really know what else to say about the SAG AFTRA strike, except thanks for watching my rant on the topic. And till next time, I'll see you later. See ya.